Hello, welcome to the More Than Five podcast. I am your host, Dr. Peter Rasor, author, pastor, and professor. I try to bring some good thinking into different areas of life, try to think things from a philosophical, theological, and biblical perspective. I like to talk about anything in philosophy. I like to talk about apologetics. I like to talk about theology, and I'm glad you've join me here in this second episode, actually. I typically have a 5-minute thinker. If you haven't had the chance to check that out yet, I hope you will click on the link that I'll put in the comments and you can check it out. A lot of videos over there. This is just my second one for the more than 5 minutes. Usually just go 5 minutes. But I decided to start looking at some different topics that will take longer than 5 minutes. So want to start doing that, and I'm glad you're here to join. And like most people, need you to like and subscribe, share the video with some friends if you get any kind of benefit out of it. I hope you do. Love for you to share it. Today, I want to look at a question that I get a lot and have received quite a bit over the years, in my 20 plus years actually, in higher education and also ministering in the church. And that question is, why believe in something or someone we cannot see? A lot of times we have skeptics and those who are seeking the idea of God and whether He exists. And one of the main difficulties sometimes, or objections that unbelievers will have, is it's so difficult to believe in something that you can't see, can't hear, can't touch, can't feel. So why do I believe in something that is unseeable, unobservable? Now, in our world today, in our culture, this is especially a significant question, issue, because we are so much in an age of technology and science primarily based upon empiricism, what is known as empirical evaluation in the study of our physical world. And so a lot of times then, most people anyway probably assume what we call an empiricist epistemology. That is a theory of knowledge. We come to know things by just observation. So when we ask the question, why believe in something that we can't see, there's actually here behind this question an assumption of a type of epistemology, a particular type of theory of knowledge, and that's empiricism. And empiricism is the idea that we can only know things by our 5 senses. Now, before we get into more detail of that, I want to take a look at the idea of knowledge first and foremost, because the question is actually about belief, but I think it's directly related to the question of knowledge. Now, historically, the definition of knowledge is justified true belief. In other words, in order to be able to claim we know something, it is said that we need to be able to not just believe it, and not that it's just true, but we need to justify it. And we need to justify it by a proper means. Now, exactly how we justify it or support why we take something to be knowledge or justification, there's a lot of reasons for that. There's a lot of different possibilities to justify what we claim to believe is true, and therefore we can say we know it. And the reason why I think the question of why believe in something you cannot see is related to knowledge is because, if you noticed, one of the 3 elements of the definition of knowledge is belief. And too many times today, when we think about belief, we think of belief as being something not necessarily founded upon evidence or being justified. Instead, a lot of times we think of belief very similarly to the idea of blind faith. And our society today, and even Christians, many Christians, think that faith is blind, that we don't have any reasons, we don't have any evidence, we don't have any justification to have faith in God or faith in Jesus Christ. Rather, we just believe blindly. We take it on experience, or we take it upon some types of feeling. We don't have scientific proof for it, and things along these lines. But I think that a better, more responsible way to think of belief and faith, as far as that goes, is that we do have reasons or justification for believing in something. And we do have justification. We do have reasons. We do have evidence, if you wish to use that word, for our faith in God, to believe and trust and have confidence that God exists, that Jesus Christ is who He said He was, and that the Bible is indeed a historical document that relays the information of who He was and supports the idea of what He did and confirms His death and resurrection and so forth. So I think what we need to do is make sure that we understand, first of all, that belief isn't blind, all right? And secondly, we need to understand now, and we're going to go to more in depth here, that the question, why believe in something you cannot see, is also basically assuming that empiricism is true, that we can only know things or believe things that we can justify by one of our five senses, or a multiple, or a variety of our five senses. But the question, I think, for us is empiricism true? Do we know things, do we believe things only based upon seeing it, or touching it, or tasting it, or something along those lines? Well, perhaps it may be beneficial to, first of all, think about three main areas of epistemology, or three main possible ways in which we can claim to know something. Obviously, we just referred to empiricism, but another major avenue by which some take to justify knowledge or belief or faith is rationalism. Now, rationalism, it began with the philosopher, well, for the most part, René Descartes, at least in our modern times, contemporary times. Plato would be considered a rationalist, and of course he was around 400 or 500 BC, as well as some other philosophers. But for our purposes here in contemporary culture, we can think of rationalism being basically founded by the modern philosopher René Descartes, who said, "I think, therefore I am." Now, in a nutshell, rationalism basically says that we can claim to know something, or in our case, believe something, if we can justify it by human reason. So in other words, we're thinking about like mathematical proofs, perhaps even some type of logical proof. Something along the lines that has to do with just using human reasoning. And so this doesn't have anything to do with empiricism. So the question then is, we have these two competing views of rationalism and empiricism to basically say whether or not we can know something or believe something. Now, some people think that they can believe in something that they cannot see because they can use rational argumentation. They can use their human reasoning. A lot of times that's what philosophy does, uses human reasoning to come to conclusions and to deduce other facts from the world that we look at and we observe. So there's a little bit of variety of empiricism and rationalism that can be mixed there. But the thing that is important for us right now is to understand that there are two main ways in which people often discuss how we can gain knowledge, either rationalism or empiricism. Now, I do believe there's a third way, and it was brought about or observed by the school known as Scottish common sense realism. And this school posited that there's actually a third way in which we can come to know things. And that was by testimony. Testimony can be basically just about anything. It can be word of mouth. It can be a text. And today, for us, it can be a podcast. It can be YouTube. It can be news outlets, the internet. It can be TV, radio, all sorts of different ways. The point for testimony is that information is coming to us not through an empirical evaluation of something, like because we saw something or because we witnessed it ourselves. And it's not coming from a human reasoning standpoint. We're not sitting down and thinking through this in a rational way. We're not using logic and rationality. But instead, there is information being communicated to us. And so this third avenue of coming to know something, or at least claiming to know something, is based upon testimony. So, for example, let's say that you want to claim that you know that Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president of the United States. Well, how do you know that? Well, the way we would justify claiming that piece of knowledge is by basically going to historical texts. We could go to newspaper clippings. We could go to old photographs. We could even look at books and biographies, even autobiography that perhaps was written by Abraham Lincoln and so forth. But all of that is testimony because it's information that has been written down by other people who have witnessed it or perhaps researched the material themselves, and now they're passing it down to others. And I think if we just pause for a moment and we just think a little bit deeper here, I think we would realize that most of our claims of knowledge actually come from testimony. Today we like to think that most of our knowledge comes from science, that somehow science is the best avenue to give us knowledge about the physical world and many other things. And that would be a form of empiricism because it's observation. But what's interesting is science, most people anyway, when they study science, don't actually perform the experiments themselves. Rather, what they do is they go to class and they have a professor or a teacher teach them these scientific facts or these scientific theories and hypotheses, and that is the way they claim to know science and things about the world. For example, I don't think any of us have ever traveled or even looked through a good, powerful telescope to see Jupiter or Pluto or Neptune or some other planet or some other galaxy. But rather what we've done is we've relied upon testimony. That is to say, through different avenues of information that others actually give to us and teach us. So, for example, we can learn about Jupiter through YouTube videos. We learn about it through TV. We learn through documentaries. We learn through textbooks, all sorts of things. But most people, they don't actually go out and empirically evaluate, observe, and investigate with one of their five senses to come to knowledge of these things. Most people rely upon others, other people, to give us knowledge. And so when we look at the question of why believe in something you cannot see, I think we have to question the assumption that's in that question. And that is that we can know things or believe in things only by empirical evaluation, by the five senses. I don't think that's true. As I just mentioned, most of our knowledge, our claim to knowledge, is actually through testimony. And I think our beliefs are the same way. Most of the things we come to believe in is not because we empirically investigated or we sat down and we rationally thought through it per se, but because we trusted a particular source, i.e. testimony, And we took that in, and then we sort of evaluated and thought about it in our minds and came to a conclusion that that particular testimony was true and something credible and thus should be believed. So why believe in something or someone you cannot see? Well, the thing is we do this all the time. And that's my point in bringing out this concept of testimony as it relates to knowledge and belief. Because even the person, the skeptic, the atheist, or the unbeliever who says we can't or shouldn't believe in things that we cannot see, even they believe in things and people that they cannot see. They believe in that Abraham Lincoln existed and all these other historical figures existed. In fact, most of your skeptic atheists, etc., they all believe that Jesus existed based upon texts, i.e. testimony. And so I think we have to first combat the assumption or one of the assumptions behind the question of why believe in something or someone you cannot see, and that is that empiricism is the only way or only credible way to have belief. Now, why believe in something or someone we cannot see? I think there's a couple more things that we need to look at. And first of all, or second of all, most things we believe in are actually things we cannot see, as I've already mentioned. But I want to give some even more interesting examples, all right? And then I want to get into, in a second, one more second element. I sort of got ahead of myself. So I want to back up just a little bit because we're probably going to get some pushback from unbelievers and perhaps even believers themselves when we say that we accept most things based upon testimony. We believe in things and we claim to have knowledge in things. Now, let me pause for a minute. There is a difference between knowledge and belief, but I think they're related. Just keep that in mind. But there is a distinction to be made between the two. I'm just saying that belief is justified and should be justified, not just empirically and rationally, but also by testimony. But knowledge is the same way. It's just that they're very similar. They're not the same, but they're very similar. Anyway, let's think about this. Not just in the things of history, in the existence of people do we know through testimony, but we can also know even things in the present. For example, how do we know that Donald Trump is the president of the United States? I don't know because I empirically evaluated it or I rationally thought about it. Rather, I know it because I saw it through the medium of the internet or television or some sort of news outlet. And most people do. Not unless that I go to Washington, D.C. and watch him be sworn in would I know it empirically. But most people didn't do that. Most people didn't go to Washington, D.C. and watch Donald Trump be inaugurated as the president. We can also think of other things, especially in our time of technology and investigation of quantum mechanics. There's a lot of scientists that will be very clear and very upfront and honest that we don't know a whole lot of what is going on at the quantum level. And in fact, most of what we do know is not really based upon empirical evaluation. We don't see a lot of these subatomic particles. We might see evidence of them, but we don't actually see them in and of themselves. In fact, we really haven't even really seen an electron and some of these other atomic type entities. Also, think of thoughts and consciousness. We can't see those things, but yet we believe in them. A lot of people do. And we take the step further and we claim to know that human consciousness exists and that human thoughts exist, that other minds exist. So when we ask the question, again, why believe in something you cannot see? Well, everybody does. We all do. So it's not really a question of should we or ought we believe in something or someone we cannot see. The question really is there good evidence? Are there good reasons to believe in something or someone we cannot see? When we think of subatomic particles and we look at quantum physics, the claim would obviously be, yes, we have good evidence and reasons to believe that these entities exist. Well, the same is true for God. We have evidence and we have good reasons to think that God exists and sent his son Jesus Christ, who was the God-man, to die on the cross for our sins and was raised from the dead. That's what apologetics is all about, is to give good reasons and evidence of why we should believe these things. Now, there is a second related topic that I do want to tack on here at the end, and that is the idea of certainty. The idea of certainty. Now, this is something that's actually pretty important that we need to understand. When we claim to believe something or we claim to know something, there's a common misunderstanding that we have to have 100% certainty in order to commit to a belief in something or someone we can't see, or to claim that to know that someone exists, like God, before we commit to it. We have to have 100% certainty. But I want to challenge that idea. I want to challenge the idea that we can't commit to a belief or commit to a knowledge claim, that is to know something, unless we have 100% certainty. And let me illustrate this by way of example of why I think this is the case. Let's say that right now you are in your home watching this podcast on your phone. You're sitting in either, let's say, in your bedroom or in the coziness, if you will, of your living room. Do you know with 100% certainty that your vehicle is still either in the garage or in the driveway? With 100% certainty, do you know that? Or do you believe with 100% certainty? Well, if you think about it, the answer has to be no, because there's always a possibility that a thief came along, broke into your car, and drove off with it. Now, that may be improbable. The odds may be very low, but still, it's not 100% certainty for you. You can't say with 100% certainty that that's the case, that your car is still there. In fact, that's the way it is with just about everything in this world. For example, you don't know, or you shouldn't commit to belief in 100% certainty that you're actually watching me, Peter Rasor, on his YouTube channel. Perhaps I created this from AI, and it's not really me, right? I mean, there's always a slight possibility that what you take to know to be true is actually false, right? There's always a possibility. So here's my point. Knowledge and belief aren't about 100% certainty. Rather, it's about probability. I know for 99% certainty, maybe it's less than that, maybe 95%, that my car that I drove to the office today is still in the parking lot. All other things being equal, I can say I know with a high percentage of certainty that my car is in the office parking lot. I don't think we can ever say 100% no. There's always a very small, even if it's very remote, probability that I could be mistaken or it's not there, my knowledge is wrong about it. And belief is the same way. So when we ask why believe in something or someone you cannot see, we don't have to say we have to know 100% certainty in order to believe it. We just have to have good evidence and good reasons that pushes the probability into a high percentage. It doesn't have to be 100%. In fact, my argument here is that we rarely reach 100%. So, in conclusion here, when the question comes to us of why we believe in something we cannot see, such as God, Jesus Christ, the Trinity, right? Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. We believe in a creator, the one who made the universe and everything in it. Well, first of all, we have to challenge the idea that we can only know things by empirical observation. That's just not true. Most of what we take to be true, or we believe in, or we commit our belief to, or even claim to know, if we go that far, is something that has been given to us by somebody else. It's information that was relayed to us, what we call testimony. And secondly, to believe in something without seeing, we don't have to have 100% certainty to commit to belief in that. So I don't have to have 100% certainty that God exists in order to put my faith and trust and belief in Him. I just need good evidence. I just need some good reasons that pushes the probability to a high probability and then commit to it. And this is nothing different from what we do every day in our lives. We are always evaluating, even if it's for a split second in our minds, of whether or not we should commit a belief in something or commit to knowing something, not 100% certainty, but just is there enough evidence to push it, to push the confidence level, the certainty level to a good percentage level, say 60, 70, maybe 80% and higher. So the next time someone asks you why believe in something you cannot see, I hope that some of this information here in this podcast will be helpful for you to respond and interact and have a good, intelligent conversation and a good avenue to think about this question. Now, if it was helpful, again, please like and subscribe. The only way that this video and all of my other videos will get out and others can benefit from them is if you like and subscribe and you share the video. So I would greatly appreciate it, and I thank you for listening, and I will see you next time on the More Than Five.